platform that I'm using because of comments that said that, hey, I can't see what you put up. So let's see what happens today. Either way, welcome to your Tuesday YouTube video with me, Paul Mampilli. And this week, hey, it's about this. It's about this. What's this? You're like, looks like, yeah, it's biotech. It's biotech. That's the DNA spiral. All right. Biotech, biotech, biotech. I can tell you, there have been many false dawns for biotech, and it is a sector group that is near and dear to my heart. I kind of cut my teeth on Wall Street through biotech. I was given biotech as a sector in 1999 to cover because of the decoding of the genome, and it truthfully totally changed my life. And there is a saying that says that all you need is one biotech bull market to make all the money you'll ever need. So, hey, but before I get into all of that, let me do, the usual stuff. And hopefully with this new platform, which you can see is called StreamYard, maybe everything will show up as it's supposed to versus the previous one. So disclosure, which is that this YouTube video is not investment or financial advice. Past performance does not equal future results. Errors, mistakes, the oversights, they happen. Capital loss is a likely and potential outcome because risk is real. Yeah, stuff happens and you don't always know. I, the owners, contractors, employees, associates of ATG Digital Media, own, trade, transact in the investments that are mentioned in this video. And I mentioned ATG Digital, so this is our company. What are you going to call it? We don't actually have like the old school newsletters, but it's modeled on that type of company. We provide investment ideas. We have model portfolios. Paid subscriptions to these portfolios begin at $9.99 per month. We focus on innovation and growth. What is innovation and growth? Well, it's easier for me to tell you what it's not, which is like there's no oil stocks. There's no old school banking stocks like JP Morgan or something. Instead, we focus on, say, in energy, we focus on new energy stocks. When it comes to banks or something like that, well, we look at Bitcoin and crypto and fintech. Innovation and growth. And in our subscription services, what do you get? Well, you get stock and crypto picks. There's updates. There's market strategy commentary. And if you want to check out and see, well, what does it look like? What does it sound like? paulmampilli.substack.com will give you a good example of what is going on. I'm just setting up for the end of the video. All right, so to the subject of this week's live stream, which is biotech. So if you watch me day to day, like what do? I read a lot, but then I also look at the market a lot. What do you mean by look at the market? Well, there's two big marketplaces, right, for stocks anyway. There's a crypto marketplace, so that's separate. For the most part, there's really no real active market in anything related to biotech and crypto, but it will come. It will come. The blockchain has application everywhere. But this live stream is really about biotech stocks, and they mostly trade on the NASDAQ stock exchange. A few do trade on the New York Stock Exchange. And if you go and look at these companies, right, you go and look at these exchanges, what I've been seeing is over the last 30, 45 days, there's just more and more action. There's more and more action where you can see certain stocks are just being bid up. There is clearly a very strong and significant interest in biotech that is happening out there. And investors are looking at it. And you know what? Over the last 9 years, the last biotech bull market peak was in 2014. That was a long time ago, nearly a decade ago. Um, and since then, I mean, we've had an astonishing number of developments. I mean, we've obviously gone through this major, event called COVID, which completely upended so many different things. I mean, it changed the FDA approval process quite controversially. It introduced the idea of regular testing to everybody. Um, and all of these things are like not yet fully played out, but still, these are big things. I mean, the accelerated approval process, while controversial, it is now a thing. And the FDA, which is the arm of the government that has to approve every drug before it can be sold or given to any one of us. Yeah, I mean, this is something that biotech companies are going to go and pursue. Why? Because the cost of developing a drug is something like, I cannot remember the specific numbers, but it's in excess of like $2 or $3 billion. And if it's for a very big indication, in other words, for a big disease, some cancer, or like say like diabetes or something like that, it can be $6 or $8 billion, and it takes 15-20 years. Yeah, 15 or 20 years to go from like, you come up with the original idea or project to like, its approval can be 15-20 years. So of course biotech companies are like, we want to use current technology to compress this period and obviously reduce the cost. And I believe that what we are going to see is some of what started to unfold during COVID start to actually emerge as like, say, hey, well, yeah, I know many people like, well, Paul, the vaccine was approved without any, that's all fair, etc. The truth is that there is still no need for drugs to take 20 years to develop. There is no need for us to be spending $5 billion on developing every drug, because listen, we're the ones that in the end have to pay for it. I mean, this is one of the reasons why drug prices are so crazy high. So bottom line, a new bull market is unfolding, not going to unfold, unfolding. And if you want to get a sense for like what unfolding means, I mean, go punch up the sticker symbol. And this is not a recommendation. This is really just like me bringing this up. Actually, maybe I'll punch it up. Since I'm using this new software, let me see if I can share my screen. Share my screen, and let me bring some of these things up. And I believe this looks far better. I mean, for one, I can see what's going on. Maybe this actually, there we go. That's what we're looking for. So I was talking about biotech having been in, I mean, you can see, so this is the XBI, which is the S&P Biotech ETF. And what you'll see is that, there was a peak in 2021, but the prior peak to that was what? 2014. This doesn't really even do justice to it, because one of the things that happened is that the very large companies have dominated biotech. And the average small company has struggled. All right. But getting back to what I was talking about, if you go and look today, like one of the biggest movers today in the market is this company, CGEN, is Compugen, right? I mean, and look at this. I mean, it's up, what, 100 and something 70% today. Why? Because they struck some deal with actually one of the companies that is in one of our portfolios called Gilead. The demand and supply balance in biotech, especially in many of these smaller companies, is so wildly off that, it was up about 200%. Bottom line is that there is definitely a biotech bull market that is unfolding right now. And I somebody actually rang the bell, so I just had to look and make sure that it's not something that I had to attend. But it's unfolding right now, and you want to get in. In fact, like this morning, I put in 2 trades on the ATG digital model portfolios, and both of them were in biotech. And one of them was for a fairly large-ish company for biotech. It's a $2 billion market capitalization. And remember, we use market capitalization, not stock price, because the stock price by itself doesn't tell you if a company is big or small, doesn't tell you if a company is cheap or expensive, and doesn't tell you really whether or not there is a large or small opportunity ahead for the company, most important of all. But one of the companies, a $2 billion company that's pursuing, a drug for a very large indication. And, this stock has just been ripping and ripping. Normally, post, the kind of crash that we've had in growth stocks, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a little afraid to go in there. But, we've seen takeovers. There's a company called Imugen that was just bought by a much larger biotech pharmaceutical company. And it was bid up by like 60-70% in a day. So that's always a good sign. In other words, the big pharmaceutical and biotech companies, they're like, hey, we need more drugs in our pipeline to develop. We need more drugs that can generate blockbuster style revenues, because remember, there's patents that expire, and drug companies have to keep pushing drugs into their pipeline to keep their revenues higher. So Imugen got taken out. And what are the big pharmaceutical companies pursuing? Well, they want blockbuster drugs, because these are $100 billion companies. Merck's and Pfizer and Bristol Myers and GlaxoSmithKline and Roche and Amgen. It's not good enough to have like a drug that generates 100 million. They got to get it where it's got to be $500 million, $1 billion. This will really start to move the needle in terms of their revenue. So a big blockbuster drug, they'll pay 100% premium over whatever the stock is trading for right now. All right, I want to just bring all of this together and get really down to what is important, which is that there is a new bull market that's going on, and the temptation is going to be for most people who don't focus a lot on markets to want to go look backwards. And when you look backwards, you'd be like, oh, Paul, I missed all those chip stocks, so let me buy those now. Yeah, I'll tell you, I've made this mistake for you. This is a wrong mistake. A new bull market is never about the old thing. It's always about something new. It's about something that people are not invested in. It is one that has latent demand. And so it's often one that, has certain signs, which is like exactly where biotech is, which is what? Which is that the average stock in the sector has done poorly. And if you look at most, biotech companies, the average small or mid-sized one, they've done poorly. Yes, here and there it's done okay. And yeah, the index, can be carried by a few stocks much higher. That's not an indication of what's going on. Second is that there's been a lot of technological development. I mentioned, the mRNA vaccines, which were, whatever people's view on it, I know they're controversial, but nonetheless, it was gotten out in record time. It did provide a benefit in terms of that if you got the vaccine, you're much less likely to have, I think, severe or critical COVID or die from COVID. And it was synthesized and all done within like a year. I can tell you in another time that might have taken 5 or 10 years to do. So, very significant technical developments. That's one of them. CRISPR is another one. We're on the verge of getting the very first gene edited drug. This is like sci-fi. Complete sci-fi. And the third thing that you'll see is that if you go and read, right, the trade journals, right? This is where I spend a lot of my time reading. If you read a lot of the trade journals, I tell you the average drug company has struggled to find financing, even for good projects. I put a stock into the diamond tier ATG portfolio today. It's a $140 million company. It's a royalty company. And what they do is, they make deals with biotech companies. And what they did today is that they did a financing deal to get a lot of capital in, because they're just seeing like so many drug companies approach them and say, hey, we need financing. and will give you really attractive terms, but we are desperate for money. And this is something else you see at the bottoms, at the beginnings of bull markets, which is that, like I said, the average stock in the sector has done poorly for a long period of time, which means that sentiment is low. People are skeptical. Second, there's been a lot of technological development that is quite significant that has already created a lot of value and has the potential to create even more value that is out there. You tend to see big pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies active, buying companies because their pipelines are empty, and that the financing within the business is in really, really poor shape, really, really poor shape. And that is borne out by, if you read trade journals like Fierce Biotech and others, you'll see, so many companies have been laying off people, cutting projects down. So if I am right, biotech might even be the leader of the new bull market, because we've got massive things that are going on that are there, like CRISPR. We've been talking about gene editing, drugs for, essentially since we decoded the genome and we could see if you can fix this gene, then you can essentially cure various, really hard to treat diseases. We're now on the verge of getting our very first approved one of these things. Just recently, Moderna announced that they have a vaccine that can reduce the risk of melanoma by as much as 50%. 50%. That's huge, and that's another big jump, which is that the idea of taking a vaccine for cancer to prevent cancer versus treat it. So another big jump in terms of healthcare. So if I'm right, we're going to see some companies do what, previously what, we look at Apple and we look at Google and we look at Netflix, but we can't imagine where is the next one? And sometimes it's not going to be in the sector where it happened before. It's going to be in a completely different sector. And I think one of the places that you can go invest to participate in this, and I'm going to share my screen again, is to participate in this one, which is CRISPR. Now, in my judgment, and remember, this live stream is opinion, not financial investment advice. There's always risk in anything that you do, particularly in biotech, because these companies, of course, are pursuing something quite risky. They got FDA approval, the drug has to sell, there's all these different things. But nonetheless, this stock, CRISPR Therapeutics, so this is the leader in, CRISPR technology, in my judgment. And they are at the very front of the line in terms of getting FDA approval. And what I have seen in the past is that if you are first, often, the lead comes to you. Like if you look at the biggest companies in biotech today, well, they were the first ones to really hit big scale, which is Amgen, was, very early on in terms of developing a biotech, the sort of like now what is, quite simple biotech, not as high tech as this. But CRISPR, from here, they what their drugs do is, they go into your body and they will essentially edit your genes so as to cure the disease. It's unfathomable. For us to have these kinds of developments be real and today. And, if you look at this company, it's currently valued by the stock market. Remember, I talk about market capitalization, $4.5 billion, right? And you might think, well, Paul, that seems like a lot of money. Yeah, it is. But, the largest company in the world, Apple, is worth $3.1 trillion. $3.1 trillion. 10% of that would be 31 billion. Yeah, 31 billion, right? 5% of that would be what? 15.5 billion. So CRISPR, which can cure disease, difficult to treat diseases, that previously, pretty much nothing worked, and certainly nothing would work like a cure, is only worth 4 billion. Yeah. 3.1 trillion for a company. Hey, I know they sell a lot of phones, but still, this cures diseases. Yeah. So there's always going to be some leader, even within the biotech, and it's often the newest thing. It's often the sort of like the thing that really captures the moment. And gene editing, I think, if I'm right, might be the thing. So CRISPR then will be, if not the leading stock, then one of the leading stocks, and a way to really participate in the bull market. And last thing I'll leave you with, you don't need 1,000 investments to participate in like a new bull market. You really just need to capture like the top 1, 2, or 3. And so, many people are like, well, Paul, I want the smallest, little, tiniest micro cap. Go and look at it. I mean, which were the biggest winners of, the tech bull market? In the end, what was Apple? It was Google. You didn't have to work so hard. So you buy the leader and you just hold on and, let the bull market do the work for you. All right. That's the live stream. Hopefully it was more successful than the previous one. And if it is, then I'm going to subscribe to this platform and use that. All right. I'm going to end by putting up my very professional thank you note. Want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm not sure if I'll be doing a live stream. Actually, I'm pretty sure I won't be doing a live stream next week, but maybe there might be one before the New Year comes. If not, again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll see you in 2024. This is Paul saying bye.